Have you ever wondered how much math your graphics card actually does when you're playing a game with amazing graphics? You might think something like 100 million calculations a second. Sounds like a lot, but that's only what it took to run Tomb Raider on the PS1 back in 1996. So what about 100 billion? Well, that would only get you enough speed to run Call of Duty on the Xbox 360 in 2011. To play a massive modern game with hyper-realistic visuals like Alan Wake 2, your card needs to do about 36 trillion calculations every single second. For that you would need 360 Xbox consoles and 3.6 million PS1 consoles. The average human can do one calculation within 2 seconds. So to match that power we need 72 trillion people solving a math problem at the exact same time. So how in the world did we manage to go from rocks and sticks to a graphics card that can do the math of 72 trillion people? That's what you're about to find out. Before we get started, you have to understand the difference between a GPU and a graphics card. The GPU is a single silicon chip. It is the actual processor that does all the heavy math we talked about earlier. However, on its own, a GPU chip can't connect to your computer. It doesn't have its own power plug, and it would instantly overheat without any help. That's where the graphics card comes in, which is the bulky piece of hardware that you plug into a computer's motherboard. It is a full circuit board built around the GPU to make everything work. So the GPU is the actual brain and the graphics card is the entire package. Now in this case you can't really say which one is more powerful. Of course the GPU chip does the 36 trillion calculations, but without a graphics card it can't even turn on. It relies entirely on the graphics card to give it the power and cooling it needs to do the job. But still, how is it able to do that job? If you opened up a GPU chip, you would see a tiny silicon square packed with 28.3 billion microscopic switches called transistors. To understand how this works, imagine the GPU as a giant office. The entire office is divided into 7 main departments. Those are the GPCs, which are basically mini GPUs. A video game sends millions of instructions to the graphics card at the same time. If all that data rushed into one chip all at once, the cores would get overwhelmed and crash. So that's why they're split into 7 small ones. Next we have the giga-thread engine standing at the entrance of the chip. It grabs all the incoming data and manages the traffic, making sure that each mini chip gets its fair share of data. Now inside those mini GPUs we have 12 smaller workrooms. Those are called the SMs. This is where the data actually gets broken down into math. Their main job is to take a specific task handed down by the mini GPU, and that's where the specialized cores come in. Each SM workroom contains 141 of those cores, and together they create things such as grass on the ground or lighting on the skin. Again, all of those cores can't be put in one big room. They would constantly get in each other's way trying to share data. By breaking them up into 12 different workrooms, the system stays efficient. Now, those 141 cores aren't all the same. We have 128 CUDA cores, 4 tensor cores, 1 ray tracing core, and 8 special function units. The first ones handle 90% of the standard math, such as shifting objects and painting basic colors on the screen. So when you look into the sky, these cores instantly calculate how the shapes of the cloud should move across your screen. The tensor cores use AI smart features like DLSS, which instantly upscales a blurry image. When it notices that your computer has a hard time loading things, the AI looks at the blurry frame, compares it to millions of high-resolution images it has in its data center, and then starts guessing where the missing details should be. It starts drawing in sharp edges, adds crispiness, and cleans up the blurry lines. The ray tracing core calculates how light rays travel. If your character walks past a glass window or a puddle of water, this core calculates exactly how the light bounces off that surface, so you can see a perfect mirror-like reflection of the world in front of you. Lastly, the special function units is responsible for creating anything with curves or special lines, such as a ball of smoke expanding from an explosion, or a tree branch bending in the wind. Now if you zoom all the way down to look at just one simple CUDA core, it is made of about 400,000 microscopic transistors. You can think of the CUDA core as a tiny automated factory belt, and the 400,000 transistors are the workers on that belt. When you press a button to shoot a laser gun in a game, there are hundreds of small pixels that need to turn blue. So the game sends an order down to the factory. Worker 1 reads the order and flips their switch up, which means yes, we need blue. Worker 2 sees worker 1's switch and flips their switch down, which means no, we don't need red. And worker 3 flips their switch up, which means make it super bright. This process happens within a split second for hundreds of thousands of pixels on your screen. So the transistors give power to the specialized cores, the specialized cores give powers to the SM departments, the SM departments give power to the mini GPUs, and the mini GPUs give power to the actual GPU chip itself. Right? Well, no, it's actually the exact opposite. If this hierarchy would have been true, the transistors would have to be like magical self-powering batteries, generating electricity out of thin air to feed the rest of the chip. Both the GPU chip and graphics card don't have any power. The graphics card needs to get power from the PC first in order to give it to the chip. Then the chip sends massive amounts of data, which gets split between the 7 mini GPUs, then it's split again between the 12 SM workrooms, and then it finally arrives inside the 141 specialized cores that turn everything into math using the microscopic transistors. It really is one of humanity's greatest engineering achievements. The chip is basically made of melted sand. We use sand because it is a semiconductor, which means that it can easily block electricity or let it flow. Now, because the parts inside a GPU are too tiny to touch, we use lasers to build them. Imagine taking a flashlight and shining it through a stencil to project a shadow on a wall. Scientists do the exact same thing, but instead they use a laser and a much smaller microscopic stencil to burn millions of tiny patterns directly onto the flat piece of sand. Because these switches are smaller than a single speck of dust, electricity can race through them instantly. They can flip on and off trillions of times a second, changing the dots on your screen so fast that it creates a moving realistic video game. So now that we know exactly how the GPU chip itself works, let's take a look at the graphics card, because this is where the real magic happens. Standing right next to our GPU chip are several smaller black squares. This is the VRAM. The GPU chip has severe short memory loss. It's extremely good at solving math, but it can only think about the exact problem it is solving at that very microsecond. It can't go searching through your computer's main storage drive, because by the time the data has traveled across the motherboard to the GPU, your game would freeze for a solid 3 seconds. That is why the VRAM exists. Once you load your game, the computer sends all those heavy game files to the VRAM ahead of time. Because it is physically right next to the GPU chip, the data can travel back and forth instantly. But how does the card get its energy? As we established earlier, the transistors don't make power. In fact, our RTX 470 chip is incredibly hungry. It demands up to 285 watts of power when running a heavy game. But there's a massive problem. The electricity coming straight out of your computer's power supply is only 12 volts. Now, if you ran 12 volts directly into the GPU chip, that would be so much that it would instantly melt the microscopic transistors. The chip itself needs a super low and steady voltage, which is usually around 1 volt. So to solve this, the graphics card uses a line of tiny components called the VRM. It takes that dangerously 12 volt power coming from your cables, chops it up and steps it down to a perfectly smooth 1 volt stream. It ensures that the chip gets a steady amount of energy. Finally, we have to talk about why the graphics card is so incredibly bulky. When 28 billion transistors flip switches on and off trillions of times a second, they generate an insane amount of heat. If left alone for even 2 seconds, the chip would literally cook itself. So the rest of the card is basically a massive cooling machine. Directly touching the top of the GPU chip is a solid copper plate. Copper is amazing at soaking up heat. Connected to this are several hollow copper tubes called heat pipes. Inside these heat pipes is a tiny amount of liquid that boils instantly when the chip gets hot, turning everything into vapor and carrying the heat away. Then all of that vapor gets pushed out by the giant vents on the outside, blowing the heat completely out of your graphics card. The graphics card splits the data across 4 separate copper tracks at the exact same time. Imagine a massive crowd of people trying to leave a stadium. If there is only one exit door, it takes forever. But if you open 4 giant exit gates, the entire crowd rushes out instantly. That's basically how DisplayPort carries the heavy 4K graphics at an ultra smooth speed, which eventually appears on your screen. So, now that you know all of this, it might still blow your mind how people were able to figure this out. The graphics card is only a part of the process to run a game. There are many other components like the CPU and RAM. If you'd like me to cover that in the next video, then let me know it in the comments down below. Now, I really want to thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.